Hi, I'm Marci Kobayashi, and I'm back again with another excerpt from my memoir, Finding Yoyu. Yoyu is a Japanese word that we use in daily conversation to talk about whether you have enough wherewithal or capacity or bandwidth to do something. It might be whether you have enough time or enough money or enough energy or mental wherewithal or spiritual wherewithal or enough confidence. And the year that I was writing about, I needed to constantly think about my yo-yo. Uh, I was helping my mother-in-law transition into a nursing home. My father-in-law, we helped him move from the countryside of Hiroshima in to live with us in Tokyo, and soon after we discovered he had Alzheimer's. And my husband, we about the same time discovered had stage 3 colon cancer, and after surgery he decided to not to use any chemotherapy and recover using a plant-based diet. So I spent a lot of time helping the three of them that year and was always looking for ways to increase my yo-yo when I realized that's what I needed. And this day where we're jumping into the story is right after my husband has had his surgery, and I don't have yo-yo on this day. So let me pick up where I left off. I had to stay home. The last 10 days had finally caught up with me, and I woke up with a low-grade fever. I didn't have any other symptoms, so I knew it was simply my body's way of saying, "Slow down and take a break, Marci." Though I didn't like leaving Akira at the hospital alone, I had no choice. Every day I had been at the hospital, sitting next to Akira's bed from morning to night. While he slept and regained strength, I sat and watched over him. Vigilant, I must be vigilant, I told myself. Sometimes I read my book, but most of the time I sat quietly, listening to the sounds of people coming and going. The nurses and other staff were kind, but I had lost faith in the hospital, and especially the surgeon. He stopped by Akira's bed at least once a day, so I tried to make sure I was there before his rounds started. Whenever I heard him coming, I would remind myself to be grateful for the work he did and keep a smile on my face. At first, Akira didn't notice anything. Then, as he got stronger, he realized what I was seeing and hearing too. Every day when the surgeon stopped by Akira's bed, he would first apologize and then engage Akira in a bit of conversation. "Well, good morning, Kobayashi-san. I'm really sorry, you know. How are you feeling today?" Though Japanese language and culture require more apologizing than English, the surgeon's apologies were out of place. Rather than make me feel better, the daily apology left me feeling uncomfortable. Did the surgeon know something we didn't know? Just how bad had Akira's condition been before they gave him the blood transfusion? According to the original schedule, Akira should have been preparing to leave the hospital and go home by now. Since he had lost so much blood, the surgeon wanted to keep him longer. At first it was understandable. However, as soon as Akira could eat solid food and digest it, I was anxious to take him home. I knew the surgeon didn't take Akira's plan seriously. During the final appointment before surgery, Akira talked openly with his surgeon about his decision not to do any chemotherapy after surgery. He shared about the Essiac tea he was drinking and the books he had been reading. He explained how he would follow Dr. Hoshino, a Japanese doctor who had recovered from a similar kind of cancer. Dr. Hoshino followed a plan based on the Gerson therapy, which includes a vegan diet, juicing, detoxification, and supplements. Neither one of us expected the surgeon to support Akira's decision not to do chemotherapy. We were prepared for that. What surprised us was the surgeon's lack of support for Akira's choices around food. Now that Akira was post-surgery and able to eat again, he was careful to keep up with his vegan diet, regardless of what he was served by the hospital. The surgeon noticed, and along with the daily apologies, went out of his way to remind Akira that he was overly concerned about food. He told Akira that it wasn't necessary to change his diet. Within a few weeks of surgery, he would be able to eat anything he wanted again anyway. He would even be able to drink alcohol. I was shocked, and Akira even more so. Why would any doctor discourage a patient from eating more vegetables and improving their overall health through a better diet? And why would he encourage him to drink alcohol? Thinking about the surgeon's comments infuriated me. If he were the picture of health, I might feel differently. However, he was overweight and his face was often red and puffy. I wanted to recommend that he try eating more vegetables and drinking less alcohol. But of course, I kept my mouth shut. Though I couldn't control what the hospital served Akira, I could supplement his meals. Every morning, I slipped a jar of fresh pressed carrot juice into the refrigerator next to his bed. Akira was careful to drink it when no one was around. There was no rule against bringing him food, but I didn't want to take any chances. I knew I was being paranoid, but I was afraid of what else the surgeon would say to Akira while I was gone. I hated that I couldn't be there. But a fever was a fever. Even though I was sure my fever was only from exhaustion, I couldn't take the risk of infecting someone at the hospital. I needed to stay home and rest. I texted back and forth with Akira a few times and then went back to bed. By afternoon, my fever went down to normal and I put on a wash. Then I made a cup of coffee, thinking I would try and do some work. In the month since Akira had been diagnosed, I had barely thought about my work. I was supposed to be preparing a budget proposal for a new government contract related to study abroad. As I came back to the table with a cup of coffee, a large crow landed on the railing of the balcony outside our living room. It made a funny warbling sound, almost like a cat's meow, and then flew away. "Hello, crow." Perhaps my work could wait a bit. I decided to start my morning routine as if the day were just beginning. I opened my computer and began to write. September 25th, 2015. Here we are on the other side of a very scary week. What a week! I don't think I want to repeat that kind of intensity again for a while. I watched The Shift again last night. Such a good movie. It makes me feel like I want to write. So if I could just relax into and do anything, what would that be? I still feel like there is this outside person I am projecting, and there is the real me inside who is surfacing. She's coming up through the soil like a bamboo shoot. You can see the ground rising and forming up in a mound, and then eventually the bamboo will push through. I feel like I've been trying so hard for so long to wrap my heart around my work, and that maybe that is not where my heart is. Is there merit in doing that marketing project for study abroad? Is there a way I could make it work? Even as I consider it, I feel like I would rather remove myself from everything, even the internet, and then start over. Of course, that is extreme and probably not necessary, but I have all these projects started and none really finished. It feels like a mess. I stood up to get a glass of water. As I came back into the living room, the crow flew back again. It was 4 p.m. sharp. Crow sat there on the railing, facing me fully, and I froze. It cawed 3 times, bobbing its head straight up with each caw. My heart pounded with excitement. Crow stayed long enough for me to grab my phone and take a picture. The photo was proof, even if it only showed the crow flying away. I'm fond of crows. I'm fascinated by their intelligence. This crow had been loud and insistent, so I sat down to write again and opened a session with my guides. September 25th, 2015, continued. Marci, are you ready to receive now? I think so. I am here and in position. Marci, Crow has come with a message for you, though we can give it to you as well. You are to walk in the forest tomorrow. Somehow you must make time for this. We have another message. You will receive it better if you are amongst the trees. Mount Takao is very close to me, and there are many strong plants and trees nearby. I have not needed to be on the mountain in the past. I believe I'm capable of receiving messages right here from this room. I am of the light, I serve the light, and I serve all people. I ask if there's any way I can be of assistance and if there's any teaching today for me or for others. Marci, it is a done thing. You have risen to the level of receiver and are open to our messages. You are ready to receive in greater quantity and to make this a life work. Are you ready to do this and commit to this every day? Yes, I think so. I can't be sure that I can promise every day. I have family distractions. They are important to me too. But before we do any further work, I want to express gratitude for the help and full-on support I received the last few weeks. I'm so honored to have worked with all of you. Marci, will you continue this work? I believe so, but I'm still a little unsure. The government contract work seems interesting at times, and certainly there is some security in it. I wonder, though, if the security of that work is even necessary. Marci, can you recognize the same feeling inside you've had before? Yes, and depending on the situation, I've chosen different paths. I remember when I decided to close the school, but how can I be sure what I should do this time? I know the old saying, more will be revealed. I get that. I just wish I knew what was missing. What missing information is still missing? I closed the connection with my guides and shut down my computer. I didn't want to think about work, especially if I was having doubts about the direction of my business. This wasn't the time. I couldn't recognize what was missing, but I could finish the laundry. I needed to hang up the clothes, and I wanted to get dinner started. Oto-san was due back any minute. He had been staying with Akira's brother for the last week. I also needed to call the nursing home and make sure Oka-san was doing well. Later, I wanted to place a few orders. I had found a shop online where I could buy organic carrots in bulk. My fever was a blessing in disguise. I was glad that I had stayed home from the hospital. Ever since we had moved Oka-san and Oto-san to Tokyo, I had been coping by neatly compartmentalizing everything. One compartment for Oka-san and making sure she was comfortable. One compartment for Oto-san and making sure he was happy. One compartment for Akira and the cancer. One compartment for my work. One compartment for communicating with my guides. As I moved throughout each day, compartment to compartment, I imagined I was taking off one hat and putting on another, ready for a different role. Over the last 10 days, I had been able to focus 100% on Akira. Even though it had been intense, it was easier because I didn't have to think about the other compartments. I only had to wear one hat. Oto-san would be back any minute. Akira would be home in a few days. I needed to stop by and visit Oka-san, and I couldn't put off my work forever. Okay, I've ended this section there for now. I'll come back next week and share what happens after that, and you'll find out whether or not in the next few weeks I was able to keep compartmentalizing in the same way. It was a good coping mechanism at first. We'll see if that serves me and helps me have more Yoyu or not. Anyway, if you'd like to learn more about the book, or especially if you're new here, I have a blog post over on my site that talks about the book and answers most of the questions people have about it. So you might want to check that out. And if you know anybody else who might be interested in the story, please share. I'd love for people to know, especially if they're in a caregiving situation, that they're not alone and there are other people out there going through it as well. So that's all for today. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.